Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, YouTube. Today we are again continuing with our Bible readings. I am using the Scriptures translation. It is definitely fall, so sweaters are back. The weather has gotten chilly. The leaves are falling, at least up here in Ohio. So we've also had the first of the fall feasts, Yom Teruah. Next week will be Yom Kippur and then Sukkot. But today we are just doing a regular Bible reading. So grab your coffee, grab your Bible, and let's read. Today we are starting in Leviticus chapter 22. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, that they separate themselves from the set-apart offerings of the children of Israel, and that they do not profane my set-apart name in what they set apart to me. I am Yahweh. Say to them, Any man of all your offspring throughout your generations who draws near the set-apart offering, which the children of Israel set apart to Yahweh, while he has uncleanness upon him, that being shall be cut off from before me. I am Yahweh. Any man of the offspring of Aaron who is a leper or who has a discharge does not eat the set-apart offerings until he is clean. And whoever touches what is rendered unclean by a being, or a man who has had an emission of semen, or a man who touches any swarming creature by which he would be made unclean, or any being by whom he would become unclean, even any of his uncleanness, the being who has touched it shall be unclean until evening, and does not eat the set-apart offerings, but shall bathe his body in water. And when the sun goes down, he shall be clean, and afterwards eat the set-apart offerings, because it is his food. He does not eat that which dies or is torn by beasts, becoming unclean by it. I am Yahweh. And they shall guard my charge, lest they bear sin for it, and die thereby when they profane it. I, Yahweh, set them apart. And no stranger eats the set-apart offering. A settler with the priest or a hired servant does not eat the set-apart offering. But when the priest buys a being with his silver, he does eat of it. And one who is born in his house does eat his food. And when a priest's daughter is married to a stranger, she does not eat of the set-apart offerings. But when a priest's daughter is a widow or put away and has no child, and has returned to her father's house as in her youth, she does eat her father's food, but no stranger eats of it. And when a man eats the set-apart offering by mistake, then he shall give a set-apart offering to the priest and add 1/5 to it. And let the priest not profane the set-apart offerings of the children of Israel, which they lift up to Yahweh, or allow them to bear their crookedness of trespass when they eat their set-apart offerings. For I am Yahweh who sets them apart. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, and to all the children of Israel, and say to them, Any man of the house of Israel, or of the sojourners in Israel, who brings his offering for any of his vows, or for any of his voluntary offerings, which they bring to Yahweh as an ascending offering, for your acceptance is a male, a perfect one, from the cattle, from the sheep, or from the goats. Whatever has a defect, you do not bring, for it is not acceptable for you. And when a man brings a slaughtering of peace offerings to Yahweh to complete a vow or a voluntary offering from the cattle or the sheep, it is to be perfect, to be accepted. Let there be no defect in it. Those blind or broken or cut or having an ulcer or eczema or scabs you do not bring to Yahweh, nor make any offering by fire of them on the slaughter place to Yahweh. As for a bull or a lamb that has any limb deformed or dwarfed, you do prepare as a voluntary offering, but for a vow it is not accepted. Do not bring to Yahweh what is bruised or crushed or torn or cut, nor do it in your land. And from a son of a foreigner's hand you do not bring any of these as the bread of your Elohim, for their corruption is in them, and defects are in them, and they are not acceptable for you. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, When a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall be 7 days with its mother. And from the 8th day and thereafter it is acceptable as an offering made by fire to Yahweh. But do not slay a cow or a sheep and its young on the same day. And when you slaughter a slaughtering of thanksgiving to Yahweh, slaughter it for your acceptance. It is eaten the same day, leave none of it till morning. I am Yahweh. And you shall guard my commands and do them. I am Yahweh. And do not profane my set-apart name, and I shall be set apart among the children of Israel. I am Yahweh, who sets you apart, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim. I am Yahweh. And there's more specifics on bring the best. If you're going to make an offering to your Father in heaven, it should be the best that you have, not discarded, crappy stuff that you didn't want anyway. Chapter 23. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The appointed times of Yahweh, which you are to proclaim as set-apart gatherings, my appointed times are these. 6 days work is done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest, a set-apart gathering. You do no work, it is a Sabbath to Yahweh in all your dwellings. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, set-apart gatherings, which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. In the first new moon, on the 14th day of the new moon, between the evening, is the Pesach to Yahweh, or Passover. And on the 15th day of this new moon is the festival of Matzah to Yahweh. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. On the first day you have a set-apart gathering, you do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh for 7 days. On the 7th day is a set-apart gathering, you do no servile work. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, When you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of its first fruits of your harvest to the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before Yahweh for your acceptance. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest waves it. And on that day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb, a year old, a perfect one, as an ascending offering to Yahweh. And its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yahweh, a sweet fragrance, and its drink offering, 1/4 of a hin of wine. And you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim. A law forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. And from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you shall count for yourselves 7 completed Sabbaths. Until the morrow, after the 7th Sabbath, you count 50 days. Then you shall bring a new grain offering to Yahweh. Bring from your dwellings for a wave offering 2 loaves of bread of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour. They are baked with leaven, first fruits to Yahweh. And besides the bread, you shall bring 7 lambs, a year old, perfect ones, and 1 young bull and 2 rams. They are an ascending offering to Yahweh, with their grain offering and their drink offerings, an offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And you shall offer 1 male goat as a sin offering, and 2 male lambs, a year old, as a slaughter of peace offerings. And the priest shall wave them beside the bread of the first fruits as a wave offering before Yahweh. Besides the 2 lambs, they are set apart to Yahweh for the priest. And on this same day you shall proclaim a set-apart gathering for yourselves. You do no servile work on it. A law forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. And when you reap the harvest of your land, you do not completely reap the corners of your field when you reap, and do not gather any gleaning from your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th new moon, on the first day of the new moon, you have a rest, a remembrance of Teruah, a set-apart gathering. Yom Teruah. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, On the 10th day of this 7th new moon is Yom HaKippurim, or Yom Kippur. It shall be a set-apart gathering for you, and you shall afflict your beings, and shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh. And you do no work on that same day, for it is Yom Kippurim, to make atonement for you before Yahweh your Elohim. For any being who is not afflicted on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. And any being who does any work on that same day, that being I shall destroy from the midst of his people. You do no work, a law forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It is a Sabbath of rest to you, and you shall afflict your beings. On the 9th day of the new moon at evening, from evening to evening, you observe your Sabbath. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, On the 15th day of this 7th new moon is the festival of Sukkot, for 7 days to Yahweh. On the first day is a set-apart gathering, you do no servile work. For 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh. On the 8th day there shall be a set-apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh. It is a closing festival, you do no servile work. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, which you proclaim as a set-apart gathering, to bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh, an ascending offering and a grain offering, a slaughtering and a drink offering, as commanded for every day, besides the Sabbaths of Yahweh, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your voluntary offerings which you give to Yahweh. On the 15th day of the 7th new moon, when you gather in the fruit of the land, celebrate the festival of Yahweh for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day is a rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of good trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim for 7 days. And you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahweh for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Celebrate it in the 7th new moon. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native born in Israel dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Thus did Moshe speak of the appointed times of Yahweh to the children of Israel. So that covers Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then the Feast of Weeks. Right around fall time, September, October, you get the 7th new moon. And on the first day is Yom Teruah, which we just had. And on the 10th day of the new moon is Yom Kippur, where you afflict your beings. That means that you fast for 1 day. And then on the 15th day of the same new moon starts Sukkot, which is when you are commanded to go camping for a week. But we are smack dab in the middle of that now, so also happens to be when there's a lot of other birthdays and things for my family. So this is a busy time of year. There's also a little note in there of don't pick everything out of your fields. Leave the corners for the poor. Because we were supposed to help everybody in the neighborhood. It was not something to be left to the government to do. It was something that we were called to do. Chapter 24. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring to you clear oil of pressed olives for the light, to make the lamps burn continually. Outside the veil of the witness, in the tent of appointment, Aaron is to arrange it from evening until morning before Yahweh continually, a law forever throughout your generations. He is to arrange the lamps on the clean gold lampstand before Yahweh continually, and you shall take fine flour and bake 12 cakes with it, 2/10 of an ephah in each cake. And you shall set them in 2 rows, 6 in a row, on the clean table before Yahweh, and you shall put clear frankincense on each row. And it shall be on the bread as a remembrance portion, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. On every Sabbath he is to arrange it before Yahweh continually from the children of Israel, an everlasting covenant. And it shall be for Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in the set-apart place, because it is most set apart to him from the offerings of Yahweh made by fire, an everlasting law. And the son of an Israeli woman, whose father was a Mitzrite man, went out among the children of Israel. And the Israeli woman's son and a man of Israel strove in the camp. And the Israeli woman's son blasphemed the name and cursed. So they brought him to Moshe. Now his mother's name was Shelemith, the daughter of Debri of the tribe of Dan. And they put him under guard, that it might be declared to them at the mouth of Yahweh. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Bring the one who has cursed outside the camp, and all those who heard him shall lay their hands on his head, and all the congregations shall stone him. And speak to the children of Israel, saying, Anyone who curses his Elohim shall bear his sin. And he who blasphemes the name of Yahweh shall certainly be put to death, and all the congregation certainly stone him, the sojourner as well as the native. When he blasphemes the name, he is put to death, and a man who strikes the being of any man shall certainly be put to death. And he who strikes a beast repays it, body for body. And when a man inflicts a blemish upon his neighbor, as he has done, so it is done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. As he inflicts a blemish upon him, so it is done to him. And he who strikes a beast repays it, and he who strikes a man to death is put to death. You are to have one right ruling for the sojourner and for the native, for I am Yahweh, your Elohim. And Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, and they brought the one who cursed outside the camp and stoned him with stones. And the children of Israel did as Yahweh commanded Moshe. And that is why we need the grace of Yeshua. Because he took away the death sentence. He gave us atonement that we could never achieve without him. If you notice, though, it didn't matter if you were an Israelite or a sojourner or a traveler, a foreigner. You were still under the same rules. Well, that is the end of the reading for today. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you are reading along. Don't take my word for it. Read it for yourself. I also hope you've had a wonderful feast day and that you enjoy Yom Kippur. And join us again next week. So may the Father bless you. Shalom.